I need to say something to you before we begin, and I need you to actually hear it, not just let it pass through you the way most things pass through when you are scrolling. Every single day, messages come, digital divine letters, prophetic words, declarations from heaven, decrees from angels. You have seen them. You may have even read several today already, and most of them, if you are being truly honest with yourself, most of them feel like they were written for everyone, which means, in the way that matters most, they were written for no one. I know that. The people who prepared what I am holding right now, they knew that too. That is exactly why they did something different. They did not send a video. They did not post a message. They prepared a physical letter, sealed, printed, packed by hand, and held until the right moment to deliver it, because some words are too important to scroll past. Some words need weight. They need something you can hold, something that does not disappear when the screen goes dark. Look at this envelope. Feel the difference, even through a screen, between a notification that pops up and is gone, and something that was prepared, sealed, and deliberately placed in front of you. Do not open alone. That instruction is not a dramatic flourish. It is a warning. Because what is inside this envelope was not written to entertain you. It was written to reach something in you that ordinary messages, the ones that scroll past in seconds, simply do not have the weight to reach. And that kind of reaching should not happen alone, which is why I am here. My name is Dorothy, and I am going to open this with you right now. Inside this envelope, there are two things. The first is a USB drive. On this drive is the letter itself, every word of it displayed on screen as text. No background noise, no distractions, just the words and you and what they carry. You are going to read them, all of them, because this letter was written for today, your specific today. And every word that comes after this moment was placed there with a precision that will become clear as you go. The second thing inside this envelope is a set of printed items, images and words, printed and sealed inside here because they belong to specific moments in the letter. At certain points, I will step into frame and place them in front of you one at a time. When I appear, stay present. What I am carrying in those moments will be important. I want to say one more thing before the letter begins. You have seen many of these divine letters, heavenly words. I know. So have I. And what I am about to show you is different. Not because of the envelope or the USB or the cards, though those things matter. It is different because of what is written on that drive. Because whoever prepared this letter knew something specific about where you are right now, something that is going to become unmistakably clear within the first few moments of reading. Stay with it all the way through. Do not stop at the place where it gets uncomfortable. Do not stop at the place where your mind begins to push back. The most important words in this letter are not the first ones. They are the ones waiting for you at the end. The letter begins now.
Stop. Before a single word of this message reaches the surface of your mind, you must understand something that heaven has been guarding as a sacred seal, held back for this precise moment alone. God saw today coming, not the way you or I see a day approaching, not through the turning of a calendar page or the shift of a season. He saw it from eternity. He marked it. He set it apart. He wrote your name beside it in the language of heaven. And then he dispatched me, Archangel Michael, with an assignment so exact, so surgically specific, that it accounts for the precise location where you are sitting right now, the exact weight pressing down on your chest, the exact miracle that has been journeying toward you far longer than your faith has dared to believe. Today is not an ordinary day. Do not let its ordinary surface deceive you for one more second. I have stood in the presence of the Almighty. I have been present when divine decrees were issued that rearranged the course of entire nations. I have watched graves open and breath return to what was dead. I have seen water divide and storms fall silent at a single word from the Most High. And I come to you today carrying one of those decrees. It bears your signature, written in the language of heaven. It carries the unbreakable seal of the Most High. And what is contained inside that decree is exactly what I am about to pour into your spirit through every word of this message, every single word. But before we press forward, hear what was happening in the invisible realm before your eyes ever found this message, while you were still moving through your morning, while you were lying awake in the dark before dawn, while you reached for your phone in the distracted middle of an afternoon that felt like every other afternoon. There was a gathering. Not loud, not theatrical, precise, purposeful. The way everything heaven executes is precise and purposeful. The Father was present, and I received my final instructions. Direct, simple. Reach her, not eventually, not when her circumstances look more favorable. Today, reach her today. And so I did. And here you are, and here I am. And today, between the two of us, in this sacred and unrepeatable moment, everything changes. Here is what I need you to do right now. Stop moving. Let your shoulders release. Let the breath you have been holding, the one you have been holding since longer than you can even remember, let it go. Because for the next minutes of your life, you do not have to solve a single thing. You do not have to figure out anything. You do not have to be strong or composed or convincing. Your only assignment in this moment is to receive. Open wide and receive. Because what heaven is releasing through this message today is not a reward for your performance. It is a gift, prepared in love, held in perfect trust, and being delivered to you right now because the appointed time has finally, irrevocably come. That appointed time is today. It will not be offered again in this precise form. The spiritual atmosphere over your life today has been calibrated specifically for what God intends to pour out. And I am commanding you, with the full measure of authority given to me by the Most High, remain. Do not rush. Do not wander. Do not allow anything, not a notification, not a distraction, not the old familiar voice in the back of your mind that insists this kind of word is never truly meant for someone like you. Do not let anything steal you away from what God is doing in this precise, sacred, absolutely unrepeatable now. Stay with me. What comes next will change everything.
This is the first item that was sealed inside your envelope. It was placed here because before this letter carries you any further, heaven wants you to see something. Look at this image carefully. Notice every detail. Then I will place it down, and the letter will continue.
I am going to ask you something, and I already know the answer, because heaven knows it and sent me here to speak about it directly. How many nights have you woken up in the dark hours, not from a startling dream or a crashing noise, from something quieter than that, a heaviness, a restlessness, a presence pressing against the inside of your chest, some prayer not yet answered, some grief not yet comforted, some question that had not yet received its response. You lay there in the dark, eyes on the ceiling, and you did what you have trained yourself to do in those moments. You called it anxiety. You called it a worried mind getting the better of you. You told yourself you were simply aging, and sleep grows more elusive with the years, which is true. And so you rolled over and tried again. But hear me now. That is not what was happening in those night hours. What you dismissed as sleepless restlessness was something entirely different. The God who woke Samuel 3 times in the dark of night. The God who came to Jacob in the watches of the night and wrestled with him until the breaking of dawn. The God who spoke to Joseph through dreams that arrived in the sleeping hours and contained the full blueprint of a destiny that would reshape an entire continent. That same God was in the room with you on every single one of those nights you dismissed as ordinary insomnia. He was not punishing you with wakefulness. He was inviting you into conversation. He was pressing on your spirit the way a master sculptor presses clay, shaping something that cannot be shaped in the noise of the daytime hours when every defense you carry is fully assembled and your practical mind is at its absolute loudest. He works in the night seasons because the night is when the defenses come down. The night is when your spirit is most unguarded. The night is when what lives deepest in you rises to the surface, and what rose to the surface on those nights, the very things God intended to address, the longing you have never been able to fully articulate, the prayer that words have never quite contained, the specific and tender ache for the people you love most, who are still in trouble, who are still wandering, who are still far from where they need to be. The quiet, unrelenting question you have pressed against the ceiling of those dark rooms. Does my life still mean what I hoped it would mean? Are the years still carrying something remarkable? Is the God who promised to complete the work he began in me, is he still working? He is. He never stopped. And today, everything, those night seasons were preparing you to receive, all of it arrives. The 3 a.m. hours were not your enemy. They were your preparation. They were the furnace of the night, burning away everything that would have blocked you from fully receiving what God is releasing today. If you had arrived at this moment without those night seasons, you would not have the depth required to hold what heaven is pouring. The vessel had to be deepened. The capacity had to be expanded. And now, today, the expanded vessel is filled.
The next item in your envelope is a text card, a word spoken directly to where you are right now. I am going to read it to you once, slowly, and then I want you to read it again for yourself. Let it settle.
There is a pattern woven through the ancient scriptures that I am revealing to you today, because it speaks with extraordinary precision to the exact position where you are standing in your own story. It is the pattern of 7. Over and over, across the most foundational texts of faith. The number 7 marks a point of divine completion and of release. The 7th day was the day of rest, not because God was weary, because completion had been reached and it was time for the new to begin. In the ancient covenant law, every 7th year the land was to be released, debts canceled. What was burdened was to be set free, not as an arbitrary regulation, as the reflection of a deeper spiritual law, the law that declares that no good thing God has promised remains withheld forever. The law that says there is a season of accumulation and there is a season of release. And when the release comes, it comes with the full force of everything held in reserve through all the years of waiting. Joseph lived 7 years of abundance, followed by 7 years of famine. But that famine did not end in starvation. It ended in the opening of storehouses that had been filling quietly during the years when nobody was paying attention. It ended in provision so overwhelming that surrounding nations had to come to Egypt just to survive. The years that looked like desolation were actually the years of secret preparation. And when the release came, it did not come as a trickle. It came as a flood. Think about the seasons of your own life. Think about the patterns of hardship, of waiting, of prayers that circled the same altar without visible response. Think about the cycles that seem to repeat with exhausting faithfulness. And now, consider this. Today, Archangel Michael declares over your life that the storehouse is open. The accumulation is complete. What God has been gathering on your behalf through the lean years, the blessings held in reserve, the answered prayers kept in trust, the provisions stored in the invisible realm while the visible realm looked empty. The storehouse is open today. This is not a metaphor for a vague spiritual experience. This is a declaration about your specific, real, concrete life. The finances that have been constrained, the relationships straining under unresolved pain, the physical body that has been asking for more than it has been given, the purpose that has felt stalled and silent, the dreams planted in you decades ago that time and disappointment have buried under the sediment of mere survival. All of it belongs to what the storehouse holds. All of it is included in today's release. The 7-year pattern does not require that exactly 7 years have passed for you personally. The principle transcends arithmetic. What it reflects is this spiritual reality. There is an appointed moment when the withholding ends and the outpouring begins. And that moment is not determined by a calendar. It is determined by the counsel of God. And today, the counsel of God has spoken. The moment is now. The release is today.
What you are about to see in this image was placed in your envelope as a visual word. A picture carries what a sentence sometimes cannot. Look at what has been stored. Look at what is being opened. This was sealed inside your envelope for this exact moment in the letter.
Now, I must speak to you about something your adversary has been deliberately and strategically preventing you from grasping. Because if you truly understood this particular truth, if its full weight actually landed in your spirit, a significant portion of the suffering you have carried through the years would be immediately and permanently recontextualized. And the enemy of your soul cannot afford for you to see clearly. So I am holding the light directly up to this. Look at it. See it for what it is. The attacks that have come against your life were never about your past, never about punishing you for your mistakes, never about settling some cosmic score against your failures. The enemy of your soul is not interested in your history. The enemy is terrified of your future. Every assault on your relationships, every drain on your finances, every diminishment of your health, every calculated attempt to isolate you from the community that sustains you, every seed of self-doubt planted so deeply that its roots wrapped around your confidence like chains. Every single one of those attacks was a preemptive strike aimed at a version of you that has not yet fully arrived, a version of you that the enemy saw coming and recognized as an existential threat long before you ever recognized yourself. Let that truth settle in you. Every targeted attack against your life was actually a twisted form of prophetic confirmation. The kingdom of darkness does not waste its resources on inconsequential lives. It does not deploy sustained, strategic, surgical opposition against people who present no real danger to its agenda. The intensity of what you have faced is a direct indicator of the magnitude of what you carry. The adversary fights in exact proportion to the threat, and the threat you represent to the kingdom of darkness is enormous, far, far larger than you have ever permitted yourself to believe. This is why the attacks have felt so personal, because they were personal, not in the way human conflict is personal, driven by emotion, misunderstanding, wounded pride. Personal in the way a military campaign is personal, precise, targeted, strategic. The enemy studied your calling. It mapped the landscape of your potential. It designed its opposition specifically to prevent what you were created to accomplish from ever reaching full and devastating expression against its kingdom. But here is what the enemy could never factor in. The campaign only works as long as its target remains unaware. The moment you see it clearly, the moment you understand that the struggle was never about your worthiness, never about your capability, never about whether God truly favors you, but about a terrified adversary doing everything within its power to prevent an outcome, it knows it cannot survive. The moment that clarity arrives, the power of the campaign dissolves, because a strategy that depends entirely on your ignorance cannot survive your enlightenment. Today, Archangel Michael brings enlightenment. Today, the strategy is exposed. Today, you see it for what it is. And in seeing it clearly, you are no longer its target in the way you once were. A sword raised against someone who cannot see it landing is one thing. A sword raised against someone who is watching it come, who has already stepped aside, who is standing in the full covering of the Most High with clear eyes and a spirit that is no longer subject to the manipulation of a fear it has finally named. That sword strikes nothing. Name it now. Say it aloud. Say, I see what has been working against me. I see the pattern. I see the design. And I refuse to cooperate with it for one more day. This is my turning point. This is where the campaign ends and the purpose begins.
This next card was placed in your envelope to give you a declaration. Something you are meant to speak over yourself, out loud if you are able, or in your spirit if you are not. Read it with me, not as a question, as a statement of fact.
I must speak now to something particular to this season of your life, to the precise position you occupy in the story of your family, your community, the people who have been profoundly shaped by your presence, your faith, and your love, even when that love has cost you far more than they will ever understand. Because for those of you standing in the latter and most powerful chapters of your life, there is a specific calling that is being activated today. The calling of the matriarch. The calling of the one whose prayers are the invisible, load-bearing architecture upon which everything else in the family stands. You may never have been given that title. Your family may never have formally acknowledged what your faithfulness has meant to the structure of their lives. That is simply how families operate. The load-bearing walls of a house are not the ones you see first when you walk through the front door. They are not decorated. They are not displayed. They hold everything up quietly, invisibly, without acknowledgement. And the house only understands how completely it depended on them when they are gone. Your prayers are load-bearing walls. Your faithfulness to God through the years, when nobody was watching, has been holding things in place for the people you love in ways that none of them have the spiritual vision to trace back to you. And today, Archangel Michael brings a direct message to those prayers. Every single one. The ones you prayed on your knees beside the bed in a house now quiet, because the children who filled it have moved on. The ones you prayed in the car on the way to doctor appointments, lips moving in the front seat when no one was watching. The ones you prayed at the kitchen table in the deep blue hours before the household stirred, when it was just you and God and the cup of coffee going cold while you were too lost in intercession to drink it. The ones you whispered over sleeping grandchildren when you tucked them in and could see in their soft and unguarded faces both their breathtaking vulnerability and their extraordinary potential. Every single one of those prayers has been received. Every single one is in the permanent, irrevocable record of heaven. And today, a significant and powerful portion of what those prayers have been asking for is being released into the visible realm. Understand this. The prayer that has persisted over years carries a different class of weight in the economy of heaven. There is a distinction, a vast distinction, between a prayer offered once in a moment of urgent need and a prayer that has been returned to again and again. That has been pressed upon the altar of God with the full, unrelenting weight of a life. That has been prayed through disappointment, prayed through the unanswered seasons, prayed even when the evidence in the visible world screamed that it was not being heard. That kind of prayer, the kind you have been praying, does not diminish with repetition. It accumulates force. It gathers weight. It grows. And when the appointed time for its answer arrives, it does not arrive as a gentle suggestion from heaven. It arrives as a torrent. The torrent is arriving today. And to every one of you carrying specific prayers for children or grandchildren who are far from God right now, who are making choices that are breaking your heart, who seem completely unreachable by any ordinary measure of love or conversation or pleading, Archangel Michael brings a specific and uncompromising word. They are not outside the reach of the prayers you have spoken over them. Not one of them. Not the one who announces they no longer believe. Not the one whose choices have created real and lasting damage to their life and to yours. Not the one who has placed distance between you, physical or emotional, and shows no sign of wanting to close it. Heaven hears every prayer you have spoken over that precious life, and today, in the invisible realm, the ground beneath their feet is shifting. What looks like hardness is the final resistance before a break. What appears to be distance is the last few steps before a return. Keep praying. Do not stop. You are closer to the answer than you have ever been, and Archangel Michael is standing as a shield between your prayers and every force that has been attempting to intercept them. Write their name in the comments below if you feel the prompting. You do not need to explain anything. Simply write the name. Let it become a declaration. Let this moment be marked as the day you refused to stop believing for them.
This image was placed in your envelope for those of you who have prayed in secret, who have interceded for people who never knew you were doing it, who have been the invisible pillar holding something up. This image was sealed for you. Look at it and know that heaven has always been watching.
Now I am taking you somewhere very specific, back through time to a prayer you prayed that you have nearly completely forgotten. Not the prayers you carry with active, daily intention. The one that got buried. The one from years ago, perhaps even decades. The one you prayed with tremendous earnestness when the need felt urgent and your faith felt like iron. And then time passed, and the answer did not come, and you eventually, quietly, without formally surrendering, simply stopped carrying it to the surface of your awareness. You may be struggling to identify it right now. That is acceptable. God knows which prayer I am referring to. He has never forgotten it. He has been holding it with the same absolute care. He gives every word you have ever directed toward him, and he is using this message on this day to reach back through time and honor what you asked him for. In that moment, you can barely remember. God is not bound by time. When he receives a prayer, it does not expire. The prayer you prayed 15 years ago and stopped waiting for is as fresh on the altar of heaven as the prayer you prayed this morning. And the moment God moves to answer it, he moves with all the power of the initial asking. None of it diluted by the years of silence. None of it diminished by your own forgetting. Think about what that means. Think about the version of yourself that existed when you first brought that request to God. And consider this. The answer arriving now, arriving today, may actually serve you in ways it could not have served that earlier version of you. The delay was the answer being held in trust, until the person receiving it was equipped to receive it well, to steward it faithfully, to carry it without dropping it. The God who has kept your forgotten prayer across all these years is bringing it to fulfillment today, because today is the precisely right moment. Not too early, not too late. Exactly on time, according to a timetable set in perfect wisdom long before you could see any of it coming. Receive that. Let it dismantle the lie that says your best prayers dissolved into nothing. Not one prayer sincerely offered to God went nowhere. Every single one went into hands that never let it go. And today, those hands open, and what was placed in them returns to you, multiplied by the years it was held, carrying the interest of a faithfulness far greater than your own.
There is a prayer you prayed, perhaps years ago, that you have nearly forgotten. This card was placed in your envelope because heaven has not forgotten it, not for a single day. Read this with me.
I must now spend time with something that has caused you genuine pain, and I will not approach it with a tidy explanation that resolves it too quickly. I am going to give it the full weight it deserves. The doors that closed. Not the vague concept of disappointment, the specific ones. The concrete, particular moments in your life when something that appeared to be yours, something you had worked for, prayed for, believed with your whole heart was right, simply did not open. Or worse, opened briefly and then shut. Or opened for someone else while you watched and tried, with everything in you, to understand what invisible criterion you had failed to meet, what you were lacking that they were not. Those moments left marks. Some of those marks have never fully faded. And I am not here to minimize that. The pain was real. The loss was real. The grief that comes when a door you desperately needed closes is not small. It is not irrational. It is not the evidence of insufficient faith. It is the natural and appropriate response of a person who cares with their whole soul about the direction of their life. But today, Archangel Michael arrives with the full picture. And the full picture is this. Every door that closed was architecture. Every refusal, every rejection, every moment when the path you were certain you were meant to walk simply ceased to exist, was a structural decision made by heaven on your behalf. Not to punish you, not to test your capacity for suffering, but because the door you were pressing against would not have led where you needed to go. And God, who can see the complete landscape of your life from its beginning to its end in a single glance, could not, in love, allow you to walk through a door that you could not yet see was wrong for you. Consider the construction of a building. An architect does not simply draw the walls that will eventually be visible. The most critical decisions an architect makes are about what will be left out, which walls will not be placed here, which doorways will not open in that direction. Because an opening placed in the wrong location does not merely create an aesthetically imperfect building. It compromises structural integrity. It creates vulnerabilities. It invites collapse. An architect of true mastery closes off certain paths, not in cruelty, but in absolute devotion to the vision of what the building is meant to become. God is the architect of your story, and every closed door was a decision about structural integrity. It was the protection of a vision you could not fully see from where you were standing. The relationship that did not materialize was a wall. Heaven deliberately did not build in that direction because the foundation there was not strong enough to hold what you would have brought to it. The opportunity that dissolved was a doorway deliberately sealed because the room behind it was not the right room for what God was building in you. The seasons that felt like refusal were seasons of architectural decision-making. Heaven designing a structure that would eventually be strong enough to hold the full weight of your destiny. Today, the blueprint is being revealed. Today, the doors that open will not close again, because today, the architecture is complete. The structure is sound, and every opening heaven marks for today is an opening into something that will hold. If you know someone barely holding on to hope in front of a closed door right now, someone who has stopped believing the next door will ever open, Send this letter to her today. Let your act of sharing be the moment the architecture becomes visible to someone who desperately needed to see it.
Every door that closed in your life had a reason. This image was placed in your envelope to show you what heaven sees when it sees those closed doors. Look at what is on the other side. Look carefully at the light.
Let me be direct about the financial dimension of what heaven is releasing today, because I know that for many of you, this specific area has been the source of the most persistent, most grinding anxiety, the kind that does not announce itself with drama. It simply sits in the background of every day, like a low-grade fever, present in every conversation about the future, in every calculation about whether the resources will stretch, in the 2 a.m. accounting sessions, where you run the same numbers and the numbers do not change. There is a spirit of financial restriction that has been operating over some of your lives, and I am naming it plainly, because naming it is the first step in breaking its hold. This is not a natural condition. It is not the inevitable result of your choices or your circumstances or the economic climate, though all of those things are real. Underneath the surface-level explanations for financial limitation, there has been a spiritual operation aimed at keeping your resources constrained, keeping the channel of provision narrow, ensuring that what you need never quite arrives in the abundance that God actually intends for your life. The goal of that operation is not simply to make you uncomfortable. The goal is to keep you so completely occupied with the management of scarcity that you never have the space, the time, the energy, or the bandwidth to step into the larger purposes for which God created you. Because a person whose entire attention is consumed by financial survival is a person who cannot fully attend to her calling. A person who is always in shortage is a person who cannot fully function in generosity. And generosity, the kind that flows freely because there is more than enough, is one of the most powerful spiritual forces available to a human being. The enemy of your soul knows this, and one of its primary tactics against you has been to keep your provision just tight enough that generosity feels like a luxury you cannot afford. Today, that changes. Today, Archangel Michael stands at the point of restriction over your finances and declares it broken by the full authority of heaven, not incrementally, not in some distant future. Today, the channel widens, the flow increases. The sources that were blocked begin to open, not because you have done everything perfectly from this moment forward, but because the appointed time of release has arrived and the decree of heaven supersedes every earthly condition that has been contributing to the constraint. Do not simply receive this as an encouragement and move on. Write, "I receive my provision today," in the comments below. Let that declaration be the first audible sound of your cooperation with what heaven is releasing. Because the release of provision in your life is not passive. Heaven does not pour into closed hands or sealed hearts. It flows into the hands and hearts that have opened themselves in active expectation. Open yours now, declare it, and watch what the next season brings.
For everyone who has sat at a kitchen table and done the numbers and felt the weight of not enough, this card was placed in your envelope The restriction has a name, and today, heaven calls it by that name. Read this with me.
I am going to speak with deep tenderness about your body now, and I am going to do it with a level of honor that your body has often not received, including from your own internal voice, because your body has carried you through everything. Every storm you have survived, your body was present for it, absorbing the impact, processing the grief, holding the tension of it in muscles and joints, and a nervous system designed for resilience, but never designed for the sheer volume of weight that a full and genuinely difficult life places upon it. Every joy, your body celebrated it. Every prayer you have ever prayed, your body physically expressed it, bowed down, kneeled, lifted hands, wept real tears. You have perhaps been harder on your body than it deserved. You have perhaps stood before a mirror and cataloged what has changed, what has slowed, what aches, what no longer moves with the easy grace it once possessed, and felt something like disappointment or grief in those moments. I am reframing that right now. What you see when you look at your body today is not the evidence of failure. It is the evidence of a life fully lived. Every line on your face is the record of a year you walked through with God. Every movement that asks more of you now than it once did is your body telling you it has earned the right to be treated gently. Every ache is your body saying it has been present, loyal, and deserving of far more care than you may have given it. And today, Archangel Michael carries a specific word of healing from the Father directly to that body, not as a general spiritual sentiment, not as a warm, vague promise, as a precise, heaven-dispatched intervention. The God who designed every organ, who wrote the operating instructions for every cell, who understands the chemistry, the neurology, and the invisible spiritual dimension of what is happening inside you, far better than any physician ever could, that God is directing his full restorative attention toward your body today. He is not working from a medical chart. He is working from the original blueprint. And his intention is restoration to the design, not a managed version of illness, not a facsimile of health, but the actual, living, fully functioning version of your body operating in the fullness of what he created it to do. Do not tell yourself this is impossible because of your age. The God who gave a 90-year-old woman the physical capacity to carry and deliver a healthy child is not limited by the numbers on your last medical report. He is not impressed by diagnoses. He is not deterred by what the scans show. He operates in a different register entirely, one in which the only operative question is not, what does the body currently show? But, what did I design this body to be? And the answer to that question, for you, on this specific day, is healing. Receive it now. Simply breathe and say, internally or aloud, Lord, I receive the healing you have prepared for my body. Not because I earned it, because you made me. And restoration is completely consistent with your nature toward everything you have ever made. That is enough. It is. And this must be said. Do not abandon the medical care you are currently receiving. God works through physicians and treatments. The healing he releases today may arrive through a new pathway your doctor identifies next week, through an unexpected test result, through a medication adjustment, or in ways entirely invisible to instruments, but unmistakably real to you. Do not narrow the channel. Stay open in every direction. And in every direction, He is already moving toward you.
This image was placed in your envelope for your body, for every place that has hurt, for every system that has struggled, for the body that has carried you faithfully through everything. Look at this image and let heaven speak to your body right now.
There is a concept I am placing in your hands right now because it is the hinge upon which everything else this message carries turns, and it is simpler than you might expect from something so consequential. It is the concept of permission, specifically, the permission that you, and only you, have the power to give God right now, in this moment, in the next 10 seconds. I know it may sound unusual to speak of giving God permission. He is sovereign. He does not require your approval to act. That is true. But there is a dimension of the way He has chosen to operate in your life that is entirely dependent on your invitation. He designed you as a free being. He did not wire you for puppetry. He wired you for relationship, for genuine, mutual, living participation in the unfolding of your own story. And relationship requires two parties who have both freely chosen to engage. You cannot have genuine relationship with someone who has no say in the matter. And so, the God who could simply override every wall, every wound, every defensive reflex in you, has instead chosen to stand at the door of your heart and knock, to send messages, to press on your spirit in the night seasons, to arrange this exact moment, and to wait. He waits for 10 seconds of genuine permission. That is all. Not a lifetime of flawless cooperation, not a performance of spiritual adequacy. 10 seconds in which you lower the drawbridge of your will and say, Lord, come into this, into the area of my life that has been most closed, most defended, most heavily barricaded against the possibility of being broken open and then disappointed again. Come in, not conditionally. Simply, come in. I open the door. I give you access. I give you permission to do in my life today what only you can do. Those 10 seconds do not happen in the mind. They happen in the spirit. The mind will immediately begin its objections. It will remind you of every previous time you allowed yourself to hope, and the hope was not fulfilled as you expected. It will draft a reasonable, well-evidenced case for why restraint is wiser than surrender. It will present the perfectly logical argument that all of this is well-intentioned, but ought to be approached with appropriate caution. Let the mind speak. Let it say everything it needs to say. And then, from the deeper place, from the place where your spirit lives, from the place that recognized something real in this message before your mind even had a chance to evaluate it, from that place, give permission. 10 seconds. Right now. The time is moving, not as a threat, as an invitation. The door between where you are and where God intends you to be is open today. It has been assigned to today, and the 10 seconds I am describing are the 10 seconds in which you step through it. Do not analyze your way out of the threshold. Do not deliberate yourself back to the same side you have always stood on. Step through, today, now, in this very breath. If you stepped through in your spirit just now, if something shifted as you received those words, if the permission was given in the deepest place you carry, write, I give you permission, Lord, in the comments below. Let that declaration be the time stamp of the crossing. Let it mark today as the day the door opened and you walked through.
The next card in your envelope contains 10 words, only 10. But those 10 words, if you mean them, are a key. I am going to read them once. Then I want you to say them yourself, out loud, in the room where you are right now.
I have been carrying you through revelation, declaration, and deep prophetic truth throughout this message, and I will continue to do so. But I must pause right here and warn you about something, because forewarned is forearmed, and what I am about to expose is a weapon the enemy deploys with maximum effectiveness in the specific moment where you now find yourself. The moment just before breakthrough. Hear this. The enemy changes its strategy at the threshold. When you are far from the breakthrough, the strategy is distraction and discouragement, the noise of survival, the accumulated weariness of carrying too much for too long. Those tools work effectively at a distance, but when you are close to the breakthrough, when the appointed time is near, when the decree of heaven is freshly written and ready to execute in your circumstances, the enemy cannot afford the distance strategy anymore. It switches. And what it switches to is more insidious than anything that came before. It whispers the specific lie calibrated precisely to your specific wound, not a generic deception. The particular one, the one that, if you accept it at this exact moment, will cause you to step back from the threshold just as the door is swinging open. And the lie almost always sounds like this. It sounds like practicality. It sounds like wisdom. It says, even if this message is real, it is too late for you specifically. The window you needed was earlier. Perhaps years earlier. The version of this blessing that carried your name has already been claimed by someone younger, someone who moved faster, someone who did not accumulate the delays and mistakes you accumulated. What God is offering you now is a consolation, not the real thing. And consolation, however kindly offered, is not the same as what you actually asked for. That is the lie of the final hour. And it is the most dangerous lie this adversary deploys because it contains just enough resemblance to your genuine disappointments to feel credible. Your mind can find evidence for it. Your memory can supply examples that seem to confirm it. Your history appears to support it. And so it lands with a weight that pure fiction could never carry. But hear me clearly and without equivocation. The lie is a lie, not a small inaccuracy, not an understandable misreading of your circumstances. A deliberate, targeted, surgical deception designed to steal from you, in the last mile, what you have been walking toward for years. The blessing God has prepared for you is not a consolation prize. It is not a diminished substitute for what He originally intended. It is the full thing, held in trust, kept in perfect condition across every season of delay, arriving today without deduction, without depreciation, without a single piece of the richness and specificity of what was promised removed from it. This is not too late. You are not too late. Today is not a moment of settling. Today is the moment of fulfillment. There is a difference between those two things that cannot be more significant, and that difference belongs to you. Refuse the lie. Name it aloud right now. That is a lie, and I reject it. My blessing is not late, and it is not reduced. My moment is now. Archangel Michael declares it over my life today. Speak it. Agree with heaven against the deception. That agreement is itself an act of warfare, and it is warfare you are completely equipped to wage.
This image was sealed in your envelope for the moment when the enemy tells you it is too late, for the moment when the lie gets loud. Look at this image and remember who is fighting on your side. This is not a symbol. This is a reality.
There is something that must be spoken in this message, with its own dedicated space, because it matters deeply to the heart of God, and Archangel Michael carries it specifically for you today. It is the matter of who you are, not who you have been told you are, not the assessment of people whose view of you was shaped by their own limitations, their own agendas, their own insecurities, who you actually are, as God designed you, as heaven has always known you to be. There is a particular kind of woman who carries her strength quietly, who has spent so many years being the steady, unshakable presence for everyone around her that her own deep needs became nearly invisible, including to herself, who absorbed the losses, the changes, the accumulated griefs of a full life with a grace that everyone around her benefited from, but few ever fully acknowledged, who kept showing up, kept praying, kept believing, kept serving, kept loving, even in the seasons when doing so felt like walking through water with weights on both feet, who made peace with the way the world overlooks women of a certain age, women past the cultural moment of peak visibility, women whose contributions do not register in the metrics that receive public recognition, who made peace with that, but never made peace with the idea that God had also stopped paying attention. She could not release the conviction, however quietly she held it, that what she carried still mattered, that who she was before God still meant something, that the prayers had not expired, that the purpose had not been revoked. She was right. You are right. What you carry does not expire. The wisdom you have accumulated through the specific and irreplaceable education of living, of loving and losing and trying again, of failing and recovering and failing differently the second time, of watching what works and what does not, and developing the discernment that can only come from sustained, attentive, costly experience of being alive. That wisdom is not a diminishing asset. It is appreciating. It is becoming more valuable, not less, with every year that passes. And the world may not yet have created adequate structures to honor it in the ways it deserves to be honored. But heaven is not the world. Heaven has been tracking every single year of your becoming with profound attention. And today, heaven speaks to what it has seen. You are not invisible. You are not past your usefulness. You are not the faded version of someone who used to matter. You are the fully developed, fully seasoned, fully prepared version of the woman God always intended you to become. The woman who has been through enough to be trusted with significant things. The woman whose prayers carry the accumulated weight of a lifetime of real relationship with God. The woman whose faith, tested and refined and stretched nearly to the breaking point and still standing, carries a quality that the untested version of you could never have possessed. The woman who is, right now, on the verge of the most consequential chapter, she has ever lived. That woman is you. Today is her chapter, and it is a chapter that will demand and reward every single thing the years prepared you to bring.
The world may have underestimated you, but this card was placed in your envelope by someone who never did. This is what heaven has always known about you. Read it. Let it be true.
Before we reach the closing declaration of this message, there is one more area I must address. Briefly, directly, without softening what needs to be said plainly, because it cannot be left unspoken, and in the deepest part of you, you already know it. There are one or two people in your life, perhaps from your past, perhaps still present in some difficult form, who have held an unspoken claim on your peace, not through any formal arrangement, not through any legal or binding obligation, through the simple, exhausting, corrosive mechanism of unforgiveness. The way an unresolved emotional debt keeps accumulating interest in the form of your energy, your attention, and the square footage of your inner life that belongs to your future, not your past. I am not here to minimize what was done to you. What was done to you was real. The wound was real. The betrayal, the abandonment, the cruelty, the indifference, whatever specific form it took, was real. The person who inflicted it was wrong to do so. The injustice you felt was not an overreaction. It was an accurate reading of what happened. But you must do something today that is entirely and exclusively for your own benefit and has nothing to do with excusing the person who caused the wound. You must unchain your peace from their debt. Those are two different things. Forgiving someone does not mean declaring what they did was acceptable. It means deciding that you will no longer allow what they did to determine the geography of your spirit. It means reclaiming the square footage of your inner life that their offense has occupied and redirecting that space toward the purposes God has prepared for it. It means choosing your freedom over the cold, hollow satisfaction of an unpaid debt that, in honest reflection, will never be paid in the way you need. The freedom on the other side of this is not a small thing. It is one of the last interior doors holding back the full flood of what God has for you today. A door you have the key to, one that opens in the direction of your future. Breathe. Think of the name or the face. Do not rehearse the details of what happened. Simply declare, Lord, I hand this to you. I release the claim. I choose my freedom over the debt. I will not carry this into the season. You are opening for me. I release it now. That is enough. The act of releasing in faith, even when feelings lag behind the declaration, initiates the spiritual process that heaven then completes. You release the weight. God takes it. And the space it occupied becomes available for something entirely new. And that new thing, it is what this entire message has been building toward. It is what today was designed to carry.
There is something you have been carrying that was never meant to be carried this far. This image was placed in your envelope for the moment of release. Look at what letting go looks like. Look at what freedom looks like. This was sealed here for you.
I am going to look ahead with you now, not in vague generalities, but in the specific and prophetically accurate picture of what your life looks like 30 days from today, when heaven's word has landed in full and what was promised begins to manifest in the visible realm. Hold this picture. Hold it firmly, because holding it now is an act of faith that cooperates with what God is actively building. Picture yourself in 30 days, not tomorrow, when the feelings of this moment may have settled and the daily noise of life has resumed its familiar volume. 30 days from today. The people who know you best have begun to notice something different. Not a manufactured cheerfulness, not a practiced performance of positivity. Something genuine, something in the way you move through difficulty that has fundamentally changed. A settled quality that was not quite there before. A new authority in the way you pray, like someone who no longer wonders if God is listening, but knows He is. A willingness to speak about His faithfulness in the present tense. Not only what He did back then, but what He is doing right now. In 30 days, one specific prayer, one of the ones I've been speaking about throughout this message, has begun to move. Not necessarily fully resolved, but unmistakably in motion. You have seen a sign, received a call, witnessed a change in someone you have been interceding for, or experienced an opening in an area sealed for a long time. And you know, with the certainty that requires no external confirmation, in the place where truth is recognized rather than argued, that what you are watching is not coincidence. It is heaven. It is the storehouse opening. It is the forgotten prayer returning. It is the warfare broken and the provision released and the architecture of your story, finally revealing the beautiful, intentional design that was present all along, hidden behind the walls and closed doors and the long, costly years. That is your 30 days from today. If you receive this word in its fullness, if you stay, if you say yes to what God is releasing, and do not retreat from the threshold when the mind begins its objections, and when that 30-day picture begins to become your actual lived reality, when you are standing inside it rather than imagining it, I am asking you to do one thing. Come back to this community and tell us what happened. Write it in the comments. Say it in your own words. Because your story, told honestly, told with the specific details that make it undeniably real, is a weapon that God places in the hands of every person who reads it. Your 30-day testimony is someone else's reason to stay when they are on the verge of leaving. Your account of what God did becomes someone else's permission to believe that He will do it for them too. This is a fundamental part of why Letters from Archangel Michael exists, not merely to deliver messages, but to build a gathering place for testimonies, a place where evidence accumulates, where person after person adds their account to the record until that record becomes something that even the most stubborn doubt struggles to argue against. The living, ongoing, continuously expanding evidence that God is who He says He is, and that He does what He says He does for real people in real circumstances today. Your testimony belongs to this community, and your testimony begins today with a decision you are making right now to receive everything heaven is releasing over your life. You have been present through the full weight of this message, and I need you to understand what that staying has meant in the invisible realm. Something has shifted over your life. not as a sentiment, as a spiritual fact. I was present for it. I witnessed the authority of the Most High moving on behalf of someone who did not leave, who remained present, who refused to let the distractions win, who endured in faith through every word to arrive at this closing moment. You are not the same person who began this message. You may not feel dramatically altered in your body or your emotions, because the changes heaven makes first are invisible ones, the kind that manifest in the physical world on a measured delay, like a stone dropped into deep water, the ripples taking their time to reach the edge. But the stone has been dropped. The ripples are already moving. And in the days ahead, you will watch them arrive. Archangel Michael now releases a final declaration over your life as this message closes. Receive it not as poetic sentiment. Receive it as a living pronouncement. It carries the full authority of heaven. Let every word of it land. Today is the day the pattern breaks. The repeating cycle of straining without breakthrough, of praying without visible answer, of moving toward the life you were made for, and somehow always arriving one step short. That cycle is severed today by the decree of heaven. The God who authored your story has written the word breakthrough into today, and what he writes, no circumstance can unwrite. Today is the day your name is spoken in the right rooms, not tomorrow, not when you have earned greater visibility. Today. There are conversations happening right now in places you cannot see, between people whose decisions directly affect your circumstances, and your name is being introduced into those conversations by the hand of God. Doors are receiving assignments from heaven to open for you. Minds are being shifted toward you. Favor is being loaded onto your name in rooms you have never entered. Today is the day your body begins to respond to heaven's instruction. The places that have hurt, the systems that have slowed, the areas that have carried more than they were designed to carry, they are receiving the full restorative attention of the one who knows every detail of what he made when he made you. Today is the day. The prodigal begins to turn. The one you have been praying toward home. The invisible shift in their spirit that your years of intercession have been building toward. That shift is beginning today. You may not see the evidence immediately, but in the spirit, the turning has started. And what starts in the spirit always arrives in the visible world. Today is the day provision moves. The constraint over your finances is broken. The channel widens. New sources become available. Existing sources increase. The arithmetic of your life begins to change because the supernatural arithmetic of heaven has been applied. Today is the day God tells you clearly, unambiguously, in a voice that goes deeper than any voice you have ever heard. I have not forgotten you. I was never absent. I was never disinterested. I was building. And what I built for you is ready now. It has your name on it. It has been waiting for you. And today, you receive it. That is the word of Archangel Michael over your life. Receive it completely. Hold none of it at arm's length. Let every single piece of it belong to you, because it does. Now act. Write in the comments below the one specific thing you are believing God for today. Not the polished, acceptable version of the prayer. The real one. The deep one. And share this letter with the specific person whose face came to your mind somewhere during these words. That was not accidental. Send it to them. Today. The harvest is being released. The storehouse is open. The decree is written. And you, beloved, you are standing in the middle of the most significant day in a long and profoundly faith-filled life. Today, it begins. Receive it all.
The final item in your envelope was placed there to be the last thing you see after the letter ends, not as a decoration, as a promise. This is what today looks like from heaven's perspective. This is your season breaking open. Look at it and believe it. Everything that was sealed inside that envelope, every image, every word, every card, was placed there for you. None of it by accident, all of it with intention, all of it from a place of genuine belief that the person watching this today is standing at exactly the kind of threshold this letter describes. I do not know your name, but heaven does. And everything you just received in this letter, the declaration, the storehouse, the forgotten prayer, the warfare that was never about your past, the healing that has been sent to your body, the miracle that has your name on it. None of it expires when this video ends. You carry it with you, right now, into the rest of today. Here is what I am asking you to do with what you received. Praise first. Write something in the comments below. It does not have to be long. Write one word, one prayer, one name, one declaration. Just let us know you are here. Let the people who will see this letter after you know that another person received it today and that it was real. Second, think of one person, just one. Someone you know who is carrying a weight too heavy for one person to carry alone. Someone who needs to receive this letter today, not as a forwarded link they might scroll past. Tell them about the envelope. Tell them what you just experienced, and send it to them personally. Your act of sharing is itself part of the miracle this letter speaks about. The envelope has been opened. The letter has been read. The decree has been delivered. Now walk in it. God bless you. Thank you for being here with me today.